Welcome, everybody. I am with my friend, Lisa Rodvien, and Arundel County Council representative from District 6. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here and just have a conversation about whatever we feel like.
Absolutely. That's how we do it here. So, I was kind of excited to have you on. You have announced that you're not going to be running for re-election. I can't run for re-election, and therefore we both have a year and a few days left to go.
Before our, quote, retirements.
Before retirement, yeah. So I'm hoping that we can reflect on some of the things we've done together and talk about some of the things that we would still like to get done, or maybe that we wish we had gotten done, and just share our perspectives on how the county works. But just for folks who don't know your background, can you kind of share a little bit about yourself and how you ended up deciding to run for office?
Okay. I will try to give the very concise version.
Okay. I may stop you and ask questions, but go ahead.
Okay. So I have been interested in civil rights issues my entire life, and it probably came out of my childhood schooling experience. I went to a school that was desegregated by busing. I'll try to make it short because there really is a lot of detail. But I ended up getting involved in music. And
desegregating before you were there or while you were there? Or
it was while I was there.
It
had happened.
Okay.
The desegregation had happened before I was there. Mm-hmm. And then there were some pieces that sort of happened while I was there, too. So it was...
Okay. And what state was this?
This is in Missouri. So our family lived in suburban St. Louis. And ironically, we lived in a pretty diverse neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We had brown kids, black kids. We had a lot of immigrant kids. And for a while, my sister and I and maybe a couple other neighbors were like the few white kids on the bus. Mm-hmm. But our school was mostly white. And so we had St. Louis, the county of St. Louis and the city of St. Louis had a desegregation busing program. So kids from the inner city in St. Louis were bused to county schools. Mm-hmm. And so I just observing all the things that meant in terms of educational equity and the fact that the program didn't start for kids until they were in sixth grade really had an impact on their education and the merging cultures, which sometimes merged really well and in beautiful ways and sometimes did not. Mm-hmm. So I was involved in music. So I actually majored in music. I took a few classes in college that were related to this interest, but after college, I decided to go to law school, and I was really focused on civil rights and education issues. So when I was finished, I clerked for a year, and then I worked in education law. Quickly realized that, and this was around when No Child Left Behind Act of 2002 was passed, or 2001.
Right. Was that Bush W?
That was, yes, yeah. Bush W,
okay.
And it had a lot of good intentions. But I wasn't a teacher and I wasn't an educator, so I didn't quite understand all the implications of it. And I heard a lot of stuff. And finally, I decided I'm really interested in education. I'm just going to go and be a teacher. So I went back to school, got a graduate degree in education to become an ESOL teacher. And then I ended up teaching social studies and music and a little bit of ESOL.
You spoke some Spanish?
And I do speak hablo un poquito de español. Y tú también.
Sí, yo también, sí.
Sí, para... Okay, we should not go too far in Spanish in case our audience isn't Spanish speakers. But did you live in – I know you have a background in Latin American studies.
I majored in Latin American studies. I never lived in a Latin American country. I actually spent a little time in Spain. But no, I just always had this affinity. And my sister married an Argentinian and was living there. And so I have family that's – yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. And I've managed to keep some of my Spanish. I wish that I had spent some time in a country where I could have become fluent, but...
So when you and I are done with this gig, we'll get together and speak Spanish sometime.
We'll work on our Spanish.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned Argentina because in high school I was an exchange student in Argentina in a tiny, tiny town.
Oh,
but
really?
That's where I got my Spanish practice from.
Oh, really? So you do the Asia and the je instead of the
je me llamo.
Yeah. Anyway, back to so you became a teacher.
Became a teacher. Long story short, I ended up teaching in Arundel County Public Schools right in the middle of the Great Recession. And after the recession things were finally improving.
Were you always a music teacher or were you?
All over the map. So I started out as ESOL. Then, ironically, I was in Hawaii public schools. My husband's former military. They were cutting ESOL teachers, even though Hawaii at the time had a huge need for ESOL teachers. But everybody was cutting everything because that was what happened when the recession hit, at least in Hawaii. And so my principal knew I had a background in law, and she's like, well, come teach social studies. Oh, by the way, you're teaching Hawaiian history. Have fun. Which was fun, actually. I learned a lot. But I ended up teaching social studies for the rest of my time while I was in Hawaii. Okay. When I came back here, I was actually looking for an ESOL job, but I was like, I'll take a social studies job, and that's what I got. I ended up teaching U.S. government. And side note, if anyone listening knows who Dewan Gay is, one of my claim to fame is I was his U.S. government teacher.
Alderman Dewan Gay.
Pardon me, Alderman Dewan Gay.
Yeah.
And his world history teacher. So I just am very proud to have a former, well, I guess he
was a piece of work as a student.
He was great. He was great. He was a fighter. Like even in ninth grade, he was a fighter. I mean, sometimes, yes, he was a pain in the butt in the way that a kid who has lots of thoughts.
He's a great guy. Saw him last night.
Yep. But he was awesome and really admired by his classmates and teachers. Anyway, so teaching during the Great Recession, I'm watching teachers literally leaving the county because our county government wasn't fully funding the salary packages for teachers. And so I just saw the firsthand effects. Kids were like, oh, I was so excited to have Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so when I got to my junior year. By the time they got to their junior year, that teacher no longer taught in Anne Arundel County because they'd moved to Montgomery or Howard or Prince George's. Pretty much every neighboring county was paying better. So we were like bleeding teachers.
And this was during the Shue administration, right? There was a lot of anger from the teachers union, I know, and about lack of step increases in pay and benefits and respect. And
you obviously, that was probably a big piece of your campaign was to say this is, when you have a frustrated, large frustrated constituency, that's something you want to tap in, especially when it's an issue that you care a lot about. And I know you've been a real champion of education, which is one of the reasons why I really like working with you.
So you ran at the same time, though.
And so that was initially my platform. Is like we cannot continue to bleed teachers because at that time, I know most people were not realizing that there was a teacher shortage on the horizon, but there really was. Like the teacher shortage that we felt around COVID was in the works at least a decade before because people were not going to graduate school and getting teaching degrees.
So that's why it was
we were going to have this retirement cliff that all these baby boomers retiring, and we ended up and then COVID hit and just like everything happened at once.
Yeah.
So that we had a few years in there. I think one of the years we started with like 400 vacancies.
Wow, at the beginning of the year.
Which is really harsh. I don't even know. Well, I know how Yeah,
I think we were like 160 2 years ago, and then it got cut in half last year, and this year we're down to
nothing.
20 or something.
Pretty normal, just normal numbers.
Well, below normal, I think. Below.
In fact,
anyway.
So that was my platform is to try and get, and I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So when the elections came around, I was really cheering like, come on, Stuart, you got to win. You got to win this election. I barely knew you, but I knew you were a supporter of education. And I knew that this was going to be an issue you'd stand for too. And I knew that some of the other folks running for the council were.
And you had a primary. I didn't have a primary, which was nice.
Oh, that's true. That's right. You didn't.
Yeah.
So,
and you were the sort of dark horse. You were not expected to win.
I was nobody. And I didn't have a massive victory. I think I won by fewer than 200 votes. So if you're ever feeling like your vote doesn't count, it really does. I feel like my primary was a great example of that. So, that's how I ended up on the county council.
All right,
Also care a lot about environmental issues and now, housing. Housing is an issue that you've worked on, the council's worked on.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say for people who are listening that I think of maybe I shouldn't say this, but I think most people recognize that you and I are probably as aligned as anybody on the council and county executive, and it has been I know you've watched me. I've watched you. We all watch each other.
Yeah.
We all ran in 18, and we didn't know what we were doing. We would get in front of groups of people, and we would mumble and say a lot, and at least I did.
I definitely did.
And it's been fascinating watching people grow in these jobs. And I will say that for me watching you, that what seems to have happened in my eyes is that your core beliefs and your willingness to stand up and fight have grown. Some people compromise more and more and more in these offices just to get by, and then they end up sort of with nothing and not respected. I'm not talking about anybody on our council, but just in general in politics. And what I've seen is you becoming stronger and stronger and stronger and committed to your beliefs, and that people really, really, really respect that.
Well, thank you. I feel like you've always been pretty committed to your beliefs. I think that's something you came in strong with, probably because not trying to make this about age, but you're a little older than me.
I'm old. I'm 64.
Really?
Just turned 64, yeah.
No, I thought you just turned 60.
I won't sing the Beatles song, Will You Still Need Me? Will You Still Need Me?
I'll have to bust out my ukulele because I know that one on the uke.
Yeah. Well,
but you had a little more life experience coming into it. coming into this role.
More years.
Yeah. Well, life experience is years, isn't it?
Yeah. So some of the issues that, at first there was a lot about education. And that first budget that I think we passed 4-3, we did town halls. Do you kind of remember what people were saying at that time, what they were coming to the county? I remember doing the budget presentation at all of those town halls, and they'd never done town halls before, all 7 districts. But during that first year in the budget town halls, it seemed we were signaling to people that we were going to have to increase our revenues in order to do the things that people had demanded in the campaign. Do you remember what people were saying?
I think there were some people that recognized that, and it's really hard to campaign on that, but I tried to at least be honest and say, look, if that's what needs to be done, I'm certainly not going to go out of my way to do it, but if that's what we need to do to make the investments that we need to in our county, I'm not going to shy away from it. And I think we had our Republican colleagues were kind of, their party really pushed them into this no tax increase pledge, and that is really, I think, for a lot of people, a very core Republican value. So I get that. But it really does put you in a bind when you realize, wow, our taxes are lower than everybody else around you. And we're
even some Democrats will pledge not to raise taxes or say a very high bar for raising taxes. Nobody wants to raise taxes.
Yeah.
But I do remember during the campaign there was an event that was organized that Steve Shue and the other Republican candidates all sat at a table to sign the no tax pledge. And they never actually invited me, but they had an empty chair for me. And then I remember responding to that. And I remember saying during the campaign, I don't want to raise taxes either, but I'm not going to make a pledge because we either need enough revenue from our current tax rate or we need to change our tax rate to have enough revenue to be able to address the fact that our teachers, our firefighters, our police, our personnel, our infrastructure, et cetera, need to catch up because of the history. So I also remember a Capital Gazette reporter guessing at how far we were going to go, and they actually guessed that we were going to go to the cap on our income tax of 3.2. We went nowhere near that.
Yeah.
We were down at 2.8, 8 point something, almost 2.9. So they thought we were going to do a lot more than we did. So it was a pretty conservative step on both the property and the income tax to get us where we needed to be.
And I actually remember some folks that were just looking at the things that we needed to invest in and said, "Oh, Stuart, should have proposed the cap right out of the gate. Should have gone further right out of the gate." And I was like, "No, I don't know that we need to do that."
Yeah.
So I think you made a good call.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to get the 4 Democrats on board.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get the Republicans, and we had trouble towards the end. I think it was our last budget of the first term where we got the Republicans, except for the one that was running for county executive.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah. I remember that.
And so we've since then we've gotten some Republican votes, and they haven't always voted together, which is healthy, I think.
Yeah.
And then remember after that, I was complaining that the income tax was a flat rate because it used to be in Maryland that it was progressive because it was a piggyback on the state rates, which were progressive, higher rates for higher income people.
Right.
And then they changed that in Maryland, and all the counties had it flat. Everybody paid the same rate. And so we got that changed at the state level. And then we did an increase for the highest earners, people making over about $500,000 a year after deductions. Yeah. And I don't think anybody really complained about that too much.
I never heard anything because
we lowered taxes for the lowest income too.
Yeah, which I don't know if it was enough for people to really feel a difference, but you're still taking a step in that direction.
Yeah.
So
land use, you mentioned being a big advocate for the environment, and then you also mentioned housing. Can you share some of what you've learned on the job about land use and how you've come down on it?
Yeah, I will say that is the toughest issue for county government, for the county council, is to find that balance and to also explain the need for both of those things. I think we're in a county where, because we're on the Chesapeake Bay and we've got a lot of people who spend a lot of time on the Chesapeake Bay, there's a lot of interest in taking care of our environment. But affordable housing hasn't always been an issue here. And so to have it become a growing issue has looked like an attack on environmentalism, and I don't think it has to be an either or. I think the trick is making careful balances and figuring out the way to get the housing you need, but also protect the things that you value. And I appreciate that about you, too. I feel lucky. You always talk about the green heart of Anne Arundel County, and I'm like, that's in my district.
Yep, Crowsville.
So we need that green space. But just a couple miles down the road, we probably have some of the highest density housing in the county. And unfortunately, we didn't get affordability. I mean, those projects were in the pipeline before we were even in office. But the fact that
they were in the pipeline, but we talked about doing that moderately priced dwelling unit bill early on, and there was a task force on it, and politically they told me we couldn't get it done.
And you know what else got in the way? I think I would go back and look at my calendar, but I think the last meeting on MPDUs was maybe around early March 2020. And so I think we just got sidetracked
by COVID.
Yeah. And so it just all of a sudden everything became about COVID. And so I think we probably missed some opportunities, but One of my regrets, though, if you do the math, is had we gotten that done early, the numbers of units that would have been at least moderately priced, affordable for some folks that aren't. And then seeing the way the market has gone, this article that just came out in the Banner about how our rent has increased faster than any other county in Maryland over the last decade, and it is really disappointing. Where our average rent is higher than Montgomery now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think probably
they've had an MPDU program for a very long time, and they've been working at affordable housing for a long time, and we've just kind of woken up to it.
Yeah, because it hasn't necessarily been an issue. I in 2018, I think on knocking doors, I think maybe one person mentioned it, and then by even 2022, a lot of folks were mentioning it, and then now, I think it was an impact, or it made an impact in the city elections that just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Folks recognizing that some of those changes to create more housing in the city of Annapolis are really needed.
Yeah, so we were in office, and both there during the murder of George Floyd and the protests that came after that, mostly organized by young people. And then we had a bunch of initiatives that were happening all over the country and the state in response to that. Tell me what that experience was like for you.
Gosh, again, it hit home just thinking back to all kinds of things that had happened during my youth, growing up in an environment where different racial groups were mixed together all the time. And things that I learned about after the fact, like a classmate of mine who was a swimmer. Swimmers have these crazy early morning practices, or at least they did when I was growing up. Maybe they still do. And he was African American, and he was on his way probably like 5 o'clock in the morning to a swim practice, and he got pulled over. And he was probably 17, but 17-year-olds can look 25. And he got really roughed up by a police officer and was totally traumatized. And they were looking at his swim bag, and it literally was his swim bag. It said probably his team name on it. And this was a story that, like, in hindsight, we just didn't know. Like, it was amazing how many things like that were happening right in our community, but we didn't know it because
it wasn't talked about.
He wasn't going to talk about it. And so it was only after, the shooting of Michael Brown really brought the same type of issue to my hometown. And it was after that he told this story. It was like, no, this is real. He didn't tell it at the time. He didn't tell it at the time, but he was like, no, it's time for people to know that this is real. We saw it in 1998 in LA when it was first on videotape, but it was hard, like, is this an outlier? Is this? And then you just feel so ignorant, like how. I kind of was of the mindset, though, that was over in the 60s and the 70s. Yeah. But it clearly wasn't. And still.
So we did the body-worn cameras, which I think had been initiated before that at the request of students largely, and got unanimous support on the council for that. Both political parties, police officers, I think now appreciate that they have them, and actually we had some support from the real question was, can we afford it, and can we staff up in the state's attorney's office to do all the work that they have to do to watch these things. But I think there's no question that that's been successful, most people would say. And then there was the Police Accountability Board's campaign and effort and state legislation, and that got contentious, didn't it? On the council.
It definitely did.
Because we had to pass a bill, right?
Yes, we did. And actually, that really makes me want to just express some appreciation for Sarah Lacey, who was, I believe, a council member who just was very true to her convictions. She knew what she believed in, and she had thought issues through all the way to the nth possible conclusion. And so when we were taking votes on different pieces that we wanted to add or take out of the police accountability bill, I got a lot of strength from her and the strength of her convictions, and realized, like, yes, I need to stand by mine as well.
Mm-hmm. Another trained attorney who wasn't afraid to go to battle.
Yep.
And it's been interesting for me. I mean, there was a debate over whether we could and whether we should go beyond what the state legislation said and create an investigatory arm separate from the way it is now, which is the police department does their investigation and sends it to the Police Accountability Board. We staffed it up, and I think we staffed it really well. And it's been relatively quiet. I think a lot of the officers and even some of the command staff were really concerned that it was going to make it hard for them to do their jobs. Yeah. And the scrutiny and the fear that any time that they used force, and sometimes police officers use force, they have no choice but to use force. And they have a split second as to whether or not to use it. Yeah. And so to have the fear of having someone second guess you, right. I can only imagine how stressful that is, and how that could make you feel sort of paralyzed in doing your job. So one of the things that, I think everybody has a different take on it, but at that time, I don't think I could have looked forward to this time and predicted that it would have worked so well. I feel, and I could be wrong, a lot of people will disagree with me, but I feel as though it's getting a little easier to recruit officers. This is a department people, if they're going to be a police officer, one that people like and feel respected, and that there is more accountability, better training, and less violence coming from actual officers who are, the bad apples, as the FOP often says. Like, we want to get rid of the bad apples too. I love that one of our union leaders, Mike Shire, is always talk about constitutional policing, and that to me just brings it right back to where it should be. Like, yes, we need police officers, but we also have to stick by the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and all the rights guaranteed in those amendments. Have you kept up at all with the work of the violence interrupters? We've got in Eastport now, we've got a group that is overseen by the Department of Health as part of our gun violence interruption. And then we've got the West County group that is Man Up. Are you following that at all? Or? I've followed the data. So I haven't followed the process as much, but the data is impressive. I mean, it's changed. Yeah, particularly Eastport, that one area that they're working in. Yeah. So obviously something is working, and I feel like that's a take. I mean, we don't want to go into Baltimore too much, but I feel like that's the same strategy that City of Baltimore used and has brought their violent crime rates way, way down. Their homicide rate is way down. Yeah. And people sometimes raise an eyebrow, like, why is the county executive of Anne Arundel County in Baltimore learning how to do these things? Because they have higher homicide rates. Right. I went there to learn about reentry work that they do. The Turnaround Tuesday that we did is Turnaround Thursday, and then have had a lot of conversations with the mayor and looked at what they do on violent, hiring violence interrupters from the community, and knowing about situations where violence was coming, a block party that would have been similar to what happened in Brooklyn homes, and that some of the same people involved were planning something at Mead Village, and the way that got canceled as a result of people in the community doing the work makes me feel like, we're not just doing constitutional policing, but we're doing the community work as well. And I won't suggest that we don't have a heck of a long way to go to create opportunity for folks. But that's been really educational for me, and I know that you've been really supportive of that too. Yeah, like I said, I watch I look at the numbers and say, yes, please continue funding this because we're saving lives. They don't normally let the public into their meetings, but you might want to invite yourself. I invited myself to go to one of the regular staff meetings of the Eastport group, where the staff comes in and they go around the table and they report on that week's work and who they've talked to and things. And they don't use people's names. They identify them with things other than names. And I was really impressed. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Very cool. With the accountability that they hold each other accountable, and they're accountable to the standards of the Department of Health, and there's a real science to doing that work. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Yeah. Check it out. So, a year left. What are your priorities in this next year? Find ways to continue to facilitate affordable housing. I think we've done some real big things, but I'm looking for other opportunities to do smaller things, because I feel like all tools in the toolbox, we need to put them all in there
There's a handful of environmental topics that I'd still like to address.
You got your bill passed just last night. Was it last night? Or
Monday.
Yeah. When this comes out, it'll be a week or so later. That basically puts into law what the county's doing with. Well, explain it.
Yeah. So basically, I had introduced a countywide bill that would have banned gas-powered leaf blowers for residential businesses for everyone in the county. And I got so much pushback, and I realized I wasn't going to have the support of my colleagues to even bother going forward. So I withdrew the bill. But you actually took up the charge and said, well, let's at least do this at the county. And so you implemented the executive order saying, let's at least the county government convert all of our gas-powered leaf blowers to battery-powered or cord electric, whatever. And so this year, I needed a break from leaf blowers after that experience. But I brought just a piece of legislation to codify what you had put in that executive order. And I really thought it was going to be I thought it would be an easy 7-0.
Yeah, why wouldn't we?
But it wasn't. There was pushback.
And I will note that didn't require the county to throw any good equipment away. It was simply when we're replacing it, replace it with electric, which is exactly what my wife and I have done on the farm. I mean, the electric chainsaw is pretty awesome, and the electric weed whacker and some of those things. Yeah,
I think once people get familiar with them, I mean, I realize, and the technology is improving too. There was a lot of conversation on Monday night. Oh, the batteries only last 10 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, if you bought your leaf blower in 2015, maybe, but we're a little past that now. So. Yeah, so I'm hoping that things like that can come back in the future, and at least we've kind of cracked the door open on topics like that. And I'm already thinking about who's going to be sitting in our seats next.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. But yeah, a few more environmental things. Hopefully, there are things that we can get past that are just common sense. I wish there were a little more. I think I already had some of that passion for environmental issues in me, but I think going and seeing what was happening in Sweden and seeing how much further along they are in terms of progress, in terms of becoming carbon neutral, and now their goal isn't carbon neutral, it's net negative, which I had never even heard of. What does that even mean, net negative? Like literally they're trying to bring carbon out of the atmosphere to mitigate damage done by other folks.
Yeah.
So that kind of blew my mind. And then just seeing all the ways that they were doing it, I'm like, these are things we can do.
Yeah.
Sweden is an awesome country, but we are also an awesome country. We have great minds and we have great resources, and when you talk to young people, this is on their minds.
When you talk to people whose electricity bills are going up, too, it's like we seriously are at a place where we're canceling wind projects that are ready to roll and put out in the sea because that are going to create the energy that the more energy we have, the lower the prices go, supply and demand.
Right.
And now we're going to say no solar, no wind, no renewable energy. It's just insanity. And solar is like the cheapest electricity you can make now.
Well, and kudos to our governor because he found some money to make another set of grants. And I'm literally, my sister beat me to the punch. She's getting solar panels installed on her townhouse sometime in the next couple months. And I was like, oh, I should do this too. She's smart.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking into it. But yeah.
Well, hopefully you and I, in terms of who gets elected after us, my philosophy is if we do a really good job, the voters will want to continue on the path that we're on, and that depends on us doing.
Yep. And continuing to do our part in sharing what we've learned, because knowledge, once people know about things, they're much more inclined to support them. And I don't know, I'll just mention we had the public hearing on the transportation APF bill a few weeks ago. It wasn't this past Monday, but it was a few weeks before that. And it was at the very end of the meeting. We were all just tired because I think we were just loaded up that night. But there were 3 young women from the Youth Advisory Council who stuck it out to the very end. And all 3 of them testified on the importance of transit, bicycle routes, sidewalks. And I'm like, this is the future talking to us.
Yeah.
We need to listen to the future. And young people are concerned about climate change. They also don't want to sit in traffic. They want to have alternatives. So I take my cues from 17-year-olds sometimes. Yeah, those are the powerful moments. And I know you and I as well feel like one of the things that we've learned is listen to the people. I mean, you got to meet people where they are anyway. Yeah. You can't shove stuff down their throat, but meet them where they are and then be willing to lead with some of them. And remember which voices aren't in the room too. Yep.
Well, I hope that you and I both continue this work after we are no longer elected representatives of people of Anne Arundel County. And I know that you will, and I know that I will.
Most definitely. Definitely. So
yeah.
I'll see you at the public hearing for whatever.
Right. We're going to be the gadflies. We're going to be a real pain.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for all that you do.
And thank you for everything that you do. You are listening to the Pittman and Friends podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button, share with a friend, and join us for the next episode.